do I do with this privilege?
Yeah, exactly. You wouldn't really know
be
what to do with it.
As much of a burden as it might be a blessing. It could be as much a burden. So as you were looking through the book and looking at some of the pictures, what most surprised you? Yes.
What surprised me was the picture of the dark black woman with the white around her lips, or rather it was red, and how she would only be able to get her hair straightened if she read a scary book. That also connects me to the movie Bamboozled, where they made all the black people go on shows, like the white men will hire black people to go on shows and paint their face black and turn their lips red, like basically making a picture of a black person, a darker black person, and that's how we were viewed. Well, darker people were viewed as black, really dark, and red lips, and it just surprised me how still, like, black women, they were still discriminated against, whether they were dark or light.
When you're talking about that particular cartoon, and she's sitting there and she's reading the scary book, I think someone was saying earlier that she almost looked kind of animal-like.
Yeah. I noticed that.
So it was the depiction of I guess this black woman being almost subhuman. But the moment that she was afraid and her hair stood out straight on end, she immediately got the idea to make it into a little pompadour. And all of a sudden, what did she become?
A beautiful woman.
Beautiful.
She looked like a lady. So it's this notion that the more like the, I guess, standard or the standard of beauty at the time, maybe what we would call the Western or European standard of beauty, the more civilized, perhaps even the more human that you are. Yes.
Yes, you asked what was most interesting, and actually I was looking at the interview with Dr. Kerr, and she was saying about creation, about how the stories of creation were always white people. They were white, but they were punished, so they became black. So they always made it seem as if being black was a curse, or it was a punishment, or being black was something that you got out of as if you were bad. It's like you're in timeout now, or you're banished. And it was really surprising to me that people had these thoughts. Like, I grew up somewhere very diverse. West Haven High is very, very diverse. So I'm not really used to the discrimination as much as other people might be. So I was speechless.
Yes.
My initial reaction, the most surprising thing to me was actually that it was fact. Because it's a book, and being someone who loves books and reads books, I read a lot of fiction. And the thing is, like, it had a vibe of a book that was more fiction, that was more something that made up in this other world. But you look back at history. My dad's in his 60s, so this would be something that he'd have to endure when he was a child. He didn't grow up in America, of course, but that's besides the point. So the fact that it was real in itself, and that this happened to people, was the hardest thing to
What
swallow
do they
for me.
say? Sometimes fact is stranger than fiction? Yes.
I can't say that I was surprised at the pictures in the book because, well, for example, the two girls won the most prettiest in the Howard, I guess it was a yearbook, because they were lighter skinned and had the longer, straighter hair. I guess I'm not surprised because it's kind of like that today. I know that boys tend to go towards the lighter skinned girls with the longer hair, or if they can't, let's say they might want to get a white girl, but they might not be able to, so they'll go next to maybe a Puerto Rican or a girl that has longer hair. You know, the black person would be on the bottom last. So that's what I wasn't quite surprised that they won the most prettiest, because they were lighter skinned and closer to the hue of a white person.
Yes. And going back to what Alice was saying about the creation stories, they were the reason why, or in the folklores, the way people became black was because they laid out in the sun too long and their skin burnt, which is basically depicting that all black people are lazy and aren't punctual and can't get anywhere on time and just like laid back, which is a discrimination and a stereotype, which is definitely not true. And going to Wilbur-Cross is such a diverse school, and I don't really see that discrimination or racism within the school, so I'm not really exposed to it, but learning about it and definitely reading this book just kind of opened my eyes to it even more. And it's really just mind-blowing when you see the global scale of it all.
So I'm really happy to hear that a lot of you feel that it's distant from you, that you go to, you don't feel it's distant from you?
No.
Talk to me.
I've had immediate experiences when people are like questioning why I'm actually in the place that I am. I've been to several programs where I was, if not the only minority, one of the only minorities. I went to Vermont for a writers' conference, and there were 3 black kids there, and I was one of 2 black girls. And when I first reached the campus with the other girls that I was with, they asked if I was in the right place. Their immediate reaction was if I was in the right place. But then I actually had a conversation with them, and I don't know if I changed their mind or not, but they realized that I did belong where I was supposed to belong. And I've had experiences like that several times, going to different places. I go to a lot of science programs, and you don't normally see a lot of minorities or a lot of women in science. And I get asked several times if I'm in the right place, or if I was lost, if I was looking for a different building. And I've been in those programs for years. So when new people come, they're not used to seeing me or someone like me there.
Do you think this is more racism or colorism?
I think it could be a little bit of both.
A little bit of both? What were you going to add to that?
You would expect it to be more distant because, like West Haven, Hamden is a really diverse town, and you would think that there would be less, racism and colorism, because there is colorism. Like if you look on Instagram and Twitter, hashtag team dark skin, hashtag team light skin, you're pretty for a dark girl, and comments like that is hurtful, and I don't think people understand the hurt behind it. They say, oh, it's just a joke, but
that's where I wanted to go next. I wanted to ask you where you see colorism and if you see it in the media. And you brought up social media.
Yeah.
Talk to me about this. This is the first time hearing about what Pretty for a Black Girl. What is all of this?
It's all the time.
It's all over.
All the time.
Everywhere.
It's actually like Vine. You guys all
Yeah.
know Vines? Yeah. And so a lot of the Vines are making fun of darker skinned black people, and they're like, dark skins be like, and so they'll do something that's inappropriate or kind of like very demeaning to dark skinned people, and it'll be a light skinned person doing it. So it's like making fun of dark skinned people.
I think that also like it's in even more discreet ways. Like I don't think so many times I've gotten compliments like, "Wow, you're really pretty for a black girl," and I'm like, "What is that supposed to mean?" Or I get comments on the way I act or the way I carry myself. Like because I attend I'm in smart classes, I take honors classes, and it's always you don't act like a black girl. Like what's the standard for acting like a black girl?
Yeah.
What's acting black? And it's very subtle, and I think it's very prominent on social media, like with even emojis, which are emoticons, you text with. There's no black girl emoji, but there's plenty of white people emoji, but no, except for the moon face emoji that's black, but there's no black person emoji at all.
It's crazy.
Nope.
How does that make you feel to be excluded, even in a situation like that, to not even find a cartoon character that looks like you that you might send to another person
Exactly.
of color? How does that make you feel?